it is more than possible that you resonate with many of these archetypes. It's not just one, it's not just I am this period. There's a box around it and nothing else touches it, right? In the same way that we have all the elements inside us at different points, different stages, different moments, we might resonate with different archetypal quote unquote witches, when really what we're talking about is, where am I getting my power? Where do I feel safest or most nourished or most inspired in this particular moment? Welcome. You are listening to Our Mindful Nature, formerly titled The Mindful Minute. I'm your host, Meryl Arnett. This podcast explores the deep connection between land and self through nature-based meditations and meditative experiences that invite us back into belonging to each other, to our ancestors, to the earth, and to all beings that make up this universe. If you would like to access these meditation practices as standalone audio files, please subscribe to my newsletter at merylarnett.com. It's free, and you'll receive a new mini meditation each week, along with behind-the-scenes content and bonus material for each podcast episode. All right, grab a cup of tea, pop in your headphones, and find a comfy seat. Let's settle in for today's episode. Good evening. Happy Monday. So glad to be with you. We were just saying that, at least for some of us, it has felt like a very long day. And so I am glad to get to sit with you and share some space that feels, I hope, a little bit stiller, quieter, more nourishing, perhaps, than the rest of our Mondays have felt. So we are moving our way through this witchy meditation series that is secretly, not so secretly, a series about our personal power and the places that we really tap into for our own sense of nourishment. And it feels like perfect, actually, to have said, man, this was a long Monday. And there's probably a thing that you do that helps with a long Monday. Sometimes those are really healthy habits and sometimes not. But on the healthier side, perhaps that is one of the ways that you source your power. It might be, if we think back to our Kitchen Witch series, for those of you that resonated with, it might be cooking something nourishing or eating something nourishing. And for today, we are talking about the Green Witch archetype. This could also be an earth witch or a forest witch. This is someone who sources their power from the earth, from plants, maybe from animals, from the animate that is all around us. And if you were a green witch and you had a long Monday, I don't know, you might simply sit outside. You might go stand in the grass barefoot. You might go do something in your garden, putter a little bit, perhaps, or go for a walk, or ask an animal guide for some guidance, some insight into your day, right? And I think for this green witch, this earth witch, what we're really thinking about is somebody who not only contemplates, but likely deeply feels the statement, we are nature. Not that we visit nature, not that we like nature, but indeed we are nature. And that statement, like, oh, good question, bog witch included. Maybe, Kristen, great question. We're going to talk about water witches next week. And it's interesting to think about, like, bog, marsh, swamp is like this overlay of earth and water, perhaps a mixture. And it is more than possible that you resonate with many of these archetypes. It's not just one, it's not just I am this period. There's a box around it and nothing else touches it, right? In the same way that we have all the elements inside us at different points, different stages, different moments. We might resonate with different archetypal quote unquote witches, when really what we're talking about is, where am I getting my power? Where do I feel safest or most nourished or most inspired in this particular moment? Yeah. So we were talking about this statement, which maybe feels a little cliche, right? Like we read this quite a bit. We are nature. I was actually just having a conversation fairly recently. Some of you probably listened. It was on the podcast a few weeks ago. It was a conversation with poet laureate Ada Limon. And in her newest anthology of poems, she writes in the introduction that very phrase, we are nature. And we talked about, if you really stop to think that's true, or what if that was true, how might you respond? Right? Like if you actually believe those words, how does it inform the way that you act? How does it inform the choices that you make? And I think for the green witch, the earth witch that we're talking about in today's class, this is somebody who probably really truly contemplates that phrase, feels the truth in that phrase, and I think likely really explores the concept of living in reciprocity with the earth around us, with nature. So that it isn't just, well, I go outside because it makes me feel good. That might be a part of it. But also, I go outside because I offer something to the earth when I step outside, because it matters that I tend to the plants in my yard or my neighborhood or my green space. Right? It's not just take, 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 but it is an equal take and give, a balance. There was a really interesting TED talk um, by an indigenous woman named Layla June Johnston. She's of the Diné tribe, I believe. And she did this talk on like this really interesting moment that we find ourselves in at this particular moment in climate crisis, where we've sort of realized, I hope, how hugely we have screwed up and how much work is ahead of us to repair the damage. And there's this interesting sort of like underlying story that's happening with climate crisis, which is like a subtle or maybe not so subtle belief that like humans were a mistake, right? Like, man, did we destroy the planet? And wouldn't it be better if we weren't here? And with that, perhaps comes a whole lot of judgment or shame or fear around connecting with nature. And this TED talk that she gave was this reminder that these indigenous people lived on this continent for 10,000 years in total harmony with the earth that they lived upon and in and with. And they didn't live hands off. It wasn't like they just like let nature do its thing and never touched anything. They actually were deeply involved in the tending to the caring of the land, right? And you read about, I don't think the word that they would use is controlled burns, but essentially that's what it is. You read about burns, you read about the way that they would harvest in a way that was very reciprocal so that plants flourished and continued to come back. And they have all these different examples of not only is human involvement not a mistake, but in fact, when done with care, with reciprocity, tremendously important to the animate earth. And it's that awareness, I think, that's really the crux of where I want us to go tonight as we contemplate the green witch archetype. I want us to be aware if we have somehow shouldered a sense of judgment or shame or mistakeness when it comes to being outside. when it comes to loving the earth or feeling connected to the earth. And I want us to remember that actually our capacity to step outside, to plant our bare feet in the soil, and to source our own power and share some of our power back with the planet that we live on is vital, vital for our communities, for our ecosystems. And so there are lots of ways to think about your green witchiness, whether that's simply I go for a walk every day, or I'm a big gardener, or um, a birder, or I speak to animals, or I feel connected to insects. I mean, there's so many ways. Maybe you like to live on the edge, like the little marshy, swampy lands right before you fall into the water. And for us today, what I want us to think about is that source of power, that relationship is very much a relationship of non judgment, of total acceptance of who we are and how we are in the moment that we step outside. And we step outside always, always with that, maybe that sense of reciprocity or relationship. We're aware when we step outside and we ask for something. Man, I had a long Monday. Please let me feel a little calmer or a little more resourced, versus stepping outside and thinking about your exhales being for the earth itself, right? Man, I'm here to offer you something. I had a Monday. I made it through. I did good. Let me share a bit of that. And those two things can happen simultaneously, right? When we go outside and we tend to our garden, maybe you harvest veggies or herbs or bloom something to bring into your home and to use in some way. And at the same time, as we mindfully harvest, as we mindfully tend, we are caring for that garden so that it can continue to flourish. I let my basil go. You've done that, right? You let your basil go and it like gets little flower on top and it gets all spindly, and it's just no longer good basil because I really I let it go. I didn't keep tending to it. And for the first part of the summer, I was pretty meticulous about going out and trimming and using some of those leaves and keeping it so that it could continue to flourish, right? That's that reciprocal relationship. Yeah. So we're going to do a practice in the woods. And man, if you're listening to the recording and you have the opportunity to go outside, I hope you do that. Sit outside, lay on the ground, put your feet on the ground, and do this practice out there. And because we here together on Zoom are not outside, we're going to listen to the sounds of a very old forest. And as I get these sounds going, perhaps you will settle yourself into a comfy seat, letting yourself land exactly how you want to be today. Taking time to settle your feet, to support your spine. Invite your arms to rest. And think about if you'd like to close your eyes, or you'd rather just take a soft gaze down towards the ground. And together as a group here, let's take a nice deep breath in. Exhale out a sigh. We'll do that again, inhaling deeply. Exhaling out a sigh. And then allowing your breath just to flow. And taking a moment to silently say to yourself, now is my time to meditate. Now is my time to meditate. And as you say those words, see if you can settle a bit more. Maybe feeling yourself let go of the day that you've already had. And perhaps letting go of all those things that you're going to do later. And instead, feel yourself landing right here in the middle of the forest. Maybe you imagine letting go from the center of your body out in all directions, releasing any clenching or gripping, and inviting yourself to breathe easily. And in your mind's eye, you might draw or feel a sense of a circle around you. Made of trees or sticks or plants, whatever you imagine. This circle, it serves as protection. It holds at bay all the distractions, the outside noises, the to-dos, the worries. And at the same time, this circle is permeable. It lets in exactly what is needed most right now. As the birds sing and the wind blows and the trees creak, you can feel safe and steady. Trusting that only what's needed will arrive. When you feel yourself breathing here, allowing yourself to be exactly as you are, without judgment, in full acceptance from these ancient trees. We sit and we breathe. And you just allow yourself to follow the breath. As you breathe in, you're feeling that breath move into the body. And as you breathe out, you're feeling that breath carried out into the woods. As you breathe in, you're following the breath into the body. And as you breathe out, you're following that breath out into the woods. And as we continue to feel the breath, we start to realize that this breathing, it's an exchange. It's in partnership with these trees that surround you. Breathing in, you are nourished. And breathing out, the forest is nourished. And breathing in, you are nourished. Breathing out, the forest is nourished. Feeling this exchange of breath like a circle. A circle that blends who you are and who the forest is. Until all that's left is the vibration of the phrase, I am. I am. I am. As we settle into about 10 minutes in silence here, let your breath continue to flow in this circle. And perhaps silently repeat to yourself, I am, I am, I am, until all that's left is the vibration. And feeling your breath in and feeling your breath out. Maybe continuing to feel the refrain, I am, I am. Very gradually, you'll let your breath deepen. You might wiggle your fingers and your toes, just connecting into those edges today. And together as a group, when you're ready, we'll take a deep breath in, exhaling out a sigh, and taking all the time you need to let go of your practice, to blink your eyes open once again. Thank you, guys. Thanks for listening to Our Mindful Nature. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider sharing it with a friend or leaving me a review wherever you get your podcasts. It helps others to find the show. And let's face it, we could all use a few more meditators in our lives. Our Mindful Nature is recorded on Muskogee land and produced with the support of Brianna Nielsen. Deep gratitude is offered to acoustic ecologists Gordon Hempton and Nick McMahon for the use of their nature field recordings in many of these episodes. To join my live classes, ask questions, or learn about my teacher trainings, please visit merylarnett.com. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you next week.